All right, so get ready because we're diving headfirst into the world of Thomas Aquinas.
Aquinas.
I know you're thinking,
Yeah.
13th century philosopher, not exactly a party, right? But trust me on this one.
Right.
Aquinas' ideas are way more relevant than you might think, even now in 2024.
It's true. What makes Aquinas so fascinating is he was this, total rock star thinker
Right.
who brought together faith and reason in a way that was totally groundbreaking.
Yeah.
He showed how you could use logic and observation, the tools of philosophy,
Yeah.
to explore even the biggest questions out there.
The big ones.
About God, the universe, literally everything.
And he wasn't just some, ivory tower scholar, you know. Aquinas was in the thick of it,
Oh, yeah.
debating the hottest intellectual topics of his time, going head-to-head with giants like Aristotle.
Exactly.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
His ideas didn't just stay stuck in the 13th century.
Right.
They've been echoing through history ever since.
Absolutely. And they still resonate so powerfully today.
True.
I mean, you've probably come across Aquinas' influence without even realizing it.
Right. It's everywhere.
Think about natural law.
Okay.
The idea that some moral principles are woven into, the very fabric of existence.
Okay.
Aquinas believed these principles weren't random, but reflections of a higher order, something we can access through human reason.
So you're saying it's like a universal moral code,
Yes.
not just something humans made up, but something that's built into the universe.
Exactly.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff.
Right.
But before we go too far, I think we need to back up a bit.
Okay.
You shared some stuff on Aquinas's 5 ways to prove God exists,
Yeah.
which sounds, well, ambitious,
It's a tall order.
to say the least.
For sure.
What were those all about?
Okay, so imagine you're Aquinas,
Okay.
and you're trying to explain God's existence to someone who's not buying it.
Right.
He came up with 5 different arguments.
5 ways to get there.
Each one like a separate path leading to the same conclusion.
I like it, okay?
One of the most famous is the argument from motion.
Okay. Argument from motion. All right, give me the crash course.
All right, so the argument from motion basically says that anything that's moving had to be set in motion by something else.
Okay.
Think about a domino effect.
Got it.
One falls, knocks over the next, and so on and so on.
Right.
But something had to set that first domino in motion.
Right. You can't have, an infinite line of dominoes going back forever. Right. Something had to get the ball rolling, that first push.
Yes. And for Aquinas, that first mover, the ultimate source of all motion in the universe, that's God.
You know, it's funny because this idea is centuries old, but it almost feels strangely relevant to modern physics.
Really?
Like when scientists talk about the Big Bang or search for the God particle,
Right.
aren't they basically asking that same question? What got the universe moving in the first place?
That's a really interesting connection,
Yeah.
and it really shows how powerful and enduring Aquinas' thinking is. He was wrestling with these really basic questions about cause and effect, the origins of the universe that we're still fascinated by today,
Totally.
even with all our scientific advances.
Exactly. So we've got these 5 ways to think about God's existence.
Right.
But you mentioned that his ideas about natural law continue to have a huge impact today.
Oh, absolutely.
How does that actually play out in our lives? Are there lawyers quoting Aquinas in court now?
Well, you might not hear them quoting him directly,
Okay.
but the principles he laid out underpin a lot of the legal and ethical debates we're having today.
Okay.
Think about human rights, for example.
Okay.
The idea that we have certain rights just by being human,
Right.
rights that governments can't give or take away,
Right.
that's rooted in Aquinas' concept of natural law.
So if someone today argues that healthcare is a fundamental human right,
Right?
not just something the government gives you,
Yes.
that's a very Thomistic argument.
Exactly. It's this idea that certain moral truths are just built into us. They
Yeah.
reflect a higher natural order.
Right. And this isn't just about healthcare.
No, not at all.
It comes up in discussions about bioethics, the environment, international law,
Everything. You name it.
everywhere.
It really is.
This is kind of blowing my mind, to be honest.
Yeah.
We're talking about ideas from the 1200s
Yeah.
that are still shaping debates about huge issues today.
I know.
That's some serious staying power.
It really is.
Speaks to Aquinas' emphasis on using our reason, our
Yeah.
ability to observe and think logically
Right.
to understand not just the world around us,
Mhm.
but also the divine. Wait,
Yeah.
hold on, back up a sec.
Okay.
You're saying Aquinas thought we could reason our way to understanding God?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where this really cool concept comes in.
Okay.
The analogy of being.
Right.
It sounds complicated, but stay with me here.
Okay.
Aquinas said, because we're created in God's image, we actually share some qualities with God.
Okay.
Things like goodness, truth, beauty.
Okay, I'm following.
But here's the kicker. God's version of those qualities is way bigger.
Okay.
More perfect than anything we see down here.
More perfect. Okay.
Oh, infinitely.
I think I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's like, I can listen to an amazing piece of music
Right.
and be totally moved by it.
Yeah.
But I know whatever created that music,
Right.
that source of beauty, has got to be even more awe-inspiring.
You got it. That's it.
Okay.
Aquinas used this analogy of trying to explain the ocean to someone who's never seen it.
Okay.
You'd use analogies, right?
Right, you have
You'd be
to.
like, imagine a desert, but it's water.
Right.
Imagine a storm, but it's constant and just goes on forever.
Trying to explain something so huge
Exactly.
beyond our understanding.
Exactly. And that's what Aquinas was doing with this analogy of being.
Yeah.
Giving us a way to even approach this idea of God that's beyond us.
So he's saying we don't have to be like theologians or philosophers
Oh, not at all.
to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
We can see glimpses of it everywhere.
Yes.
The beauty of nature, acts of kindness,
Yes.
even searching for truth itself.
Yes. And for Aquinas, even the act of questioning,
Yeah.
wanting to understand, that shows our God-given ability to reason. Remember, faith and reason,
Yeah.
not enemies, they're partners in this whole journey.
Partners. I like that.
Yeah.
This is making me want to like go for a walk and ponder life's big mysteries.
Go for it.
But before I spiral into an existential crisis,
Right.
let's bring it back down to earth for a sec.
Okay.
If we met a modern-day follower of Aquinas,
Okay.
let's call him a neo-Thomist,
All right. I like it.
what would they be like? Would they be walking around quoting medieval philosophy?
You know, you might be surprised.
Yeah.
A neo-Thomist today could be a scientist wrestling with the ethics of AI.
Okay.
Or they could be out there fighting for social justice.
Interesting.
It's really broad.
Because all of that gets at these big questions
Exactly.
about right and wrong, human dignity,
The core of it.
which was central to Aquinas.
Exactly. They wouldn't see faith as separate from the world,
Right.
but as the very foundation for how they engage with the world.
Interesting.
Approaching these tough issues with reason
Yeah.
and compassion,
No.
finding solutions that honor every person's inherent dignity.
You know, Aquinas is starting to sound less like a dusty old figure
Yeah,
and more like someone you'd see giving a TED Talk.
right.
What do you think he'd make of all the tech and social change happening today?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
Imagine Aquinas with, like, a smartphone.
Hold on. Picture this.
Okay.
Friar Aquinas, smartphone in hand, tweeting out his thoughts on natural law and the metaverse.
There you go.
Now, that's an image.
Right.
But seriously, though,
I think he'd be really intrigued by all of it.
Yeah.
Good and the bad.
it's a lot to process.
It really is.
I think he'd be up for a deep dive into our podcast archive.
Huh. He might have some thoughts,
Right.
but I think more importantly, he'd remind us that even with all the distractions today,
Mm-hmm. There's a lot.
those core questions about truth, goodness, meaning in life,
Yeah.
they're just as important as ever.
And maybe even more so, it feels like,
Right.
in all the chaos.
And we have this incredible power of reason
Yeah.
to help us wrestle with those questions.
Even if the answers aren't easy.
Exactly. It's a process.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
I like that. That's a good one to carry with us.
Right.
Speaking of carrying things,
Okay.
I'm getting the signal that our deep dive on Aquinas is coming to a close.
Okay.
But before we wrap up completely,
Yeah.
any key takeaways? Aquinas 101 Essentials
Ooh, Aquinas 101. I like it.
that you hope our listeners will walk away with today.
You know, if I had to pick just one thing,
Yeah.
it's that Aquinas reminds us faith and reason, they're not enemies.
They work together.
They're both crucial for understanding ourselves.
And the universe. It's like he's saying it's okay to embrace both.
Totally.
Our sense of wonder and our critical thinking.
Yes.
To ask the big questions with our hearts and our minds.
And for him, those big questions about God, the meaning of life, good and evil, they weren't just some abstract ideas.
Yeah.
They directly relate to how we live our lives.
How we treat each other.
Yeah, exactly.
How we build the kind of world we want.
It's not just about thinking about the universe. It's about taking those insights and living them out.
Putting them into practice in the real world.
Exactly.
And, thinking about Aquinas now.
Yeah.
In today's world.
It makes you wonder what he'd say about how we talk to each other today.
It's a mess.
Right. So much polarization.
It feels like everyone's just shouting.
Not really listening.
Yeah, just stuck in their own echo chambers.
He'd have a lot to say about that.
I bet.
I think he'd remind us that real dialogue requires actually listening.
To people you disagree with.
To those who see things differently.
Yeah. Which is hard, I'll be honest.
It's not easy, but Aquinas was amazing at it.
He was?
Engaging different viewpoints.
Finding common ground.
Even when there were big differences.
He always emphasized that reason itself is a gift.
It's true.
It's not about winning arguments.
It's not about that.
It's about understanding.
It's about pursuing truth.
Together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And recognizing that even when we disagree,
yeah,
there might be a bigger truth.
we can all learn from.
Yeah, we can all share in.
That's actually a really cool way to think about disagreements.
Right.
Not as something to avoid.
But as an opportunity.
To learn and grow.
Exactly. Especially now when it's so easy to just stay in our bubbles.
It's more important than ever to break out of those.
To really listen and learn from each other.
So as we wrap up our Aquinas deep dive.
It's been a journey.
It really has.
We're not just leaving with a bunch of philosophy.
Right. It's more than that.
It's a call to action.
To engage with the world.
And each other.
With curiosity and compassion.
To seek understanding even when it's difficult.
To embrace faith and as our guides.
And to never stop asking the big questions.
About who we are, why we're here.
What a good way to end this.
Right.
I'm inspired. I don't know about you.
Me too.
Time for me to go have a serious conversation.
Go for it.
Maybe with a tree. Who knows?
I love it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Thomas Aquinas.
Get a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone.
And keep those conversations going.